All right, guys, how you all doing today? For those of you that were at our live session yesterday, I talked a little bit about this topic here, but if you missed it, no problem. We're going to go through it now and go through a few examples. So our next unit here, which is going to be pretty short, so there's not a lot to it, is simplifying square roots, or as they're sometimes called, radicals. Radical is just another word for square root. So if you hear me say that, it's no different than me saying the square root of something. Now, talk about a few examples here. First one, I'm going to start relatively easy here. Something like the square root of 12. Now, prior to this, if we saw a square root of 12, the only thing we really knew how to do was put that into our calculator. But it's going to really help us if we can rewrite these square roots or radicals in a different form. That's going to help us work with these numbers in the future. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take this number and we are going to make sort of factor trees like you did when you were younger. So for 12, we're going to think of two numbers that multiply to give me 12. I'm going to say 4 and 3. Some of you might have been thinking 6 and 2. Either way, it's okay. At the end, you're going to end up with the same answer. Now, after I break something up, I do like to cross it off just so I don't get confused, and I know that number is now gone. So the 12 is going to break into 4 and 3. The 4 is going to break into 2 and 2. So I'm left with 2, 2, and 3. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to look for any numbers that have pairs or partners. So in this case, notice that I have 2 2s. If you have a pair of something, that number can then be placed outside of the square root or the radical. So I can place this 2 outside of the square root, and this 3 that doesn't have a pair is going to remain inside the square root. So the square root of 12 can be simplified to 2 square root of 3. Whatever you have a pair of goes outside the square root. Whatever you don't have a pair of is going to stay inside the square root. All right, let's try another example of this just to give you guys some more practice. Next one, let's try something like square root of 20. So if I have the square root of 20, I'm going to try and factor that. That becomes 5 and 4. And I can break 4 up into 2 and 2. Now, you'll notice that I have a pair of 2s. So those 2s are going to go outside of my square root. My 5 that I don't have a pair of will be left inside. So this will become 2 square root of 5. All right. Hopefully this is kind of making sense. Now, I do have to warn you, there will be some examples that you will do, and you're not going to find a pair. So, for example, if I have the square root of 30, if I break this up, I might break it up into 10 and 3, and 10 breaks up into 5 and 2. I don't have a pair of anything. I have a 5, a 2, and a 3. No pairs. So I have nothing outside my radical. So inside, I'm going to put all these things that don't have a pair. That's 5, that's 2, that's 3. If there's more than one thing inside or outside, we're just going to multiply those together. So 5 times 2 times 3. This is going to bring me back, you'll notice, to square root of 30. So there will be some square roots that we look at, or some radicals, where they're not going to be able to be written any simpler. Square root of 30 is as simple as that gets for right now. All right, I'm going to stop here for today with this short little lesson. I'll come back tomorrow with some examples that are a little bit tougher and some that start with stuff outside the radical. So we'll talk about that in the future. Hopefully the practice goes well for this, and let me know if you have any questions.